Sound check. Hello, I'm Troy McClure. You might remember me from such films as Psycho Beach Party 3, Chiclet's Revenge, and Spinach, Nature's Deadliest Vegetable. Hi. For those of you who thought you were watching the new Katy Perry video, I am in fact Peter Clines, author of Ex-Heroes, Ex-Patriots, The Junkie Quatrain, 14, a bunch of film and television articles, some short stories, and a Robinson Crusoe mashup novel that absolutely none of you have ever read. Anyway, I thought about doing this little Q&A thing. Some of you thought it was a good idea. A bunch of you sent in questions, and so here we are. Andrew sent me a note on Google+. I'm in search for new books to read of any genre. Do you have some suggestions to hold us over until your next book is available? This actually dovetails really well with a question I got from Dan, who wanted to know my top 5 favorite books, movies, and comics. It may make me sound old, but I love To Kill a Mockingbird. It's just such a wonderful book. It's great language. It's a coming-of-age story. It's a courtroom drama. It's a little bit of a mystery. That's really great. I also love The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, for those of you who heard Shawshank Redemption. It's the original tale, the prison break tale, the tale of revenge. It's great. A little more modern, Neil Gaiman's Anansi Boys is fantastic. I have a list. Dan Abnett is a great author. He does great war stories that I love reading, the Warhammer 40K stuff. My favorite is probably Ravener, which he autographed for me down at San Diego Comic-Con about 7 years ago, something like that. I think Stephen King's The Stand is just a modern masterpiece. It's got one of my favorite lines in modern fiction in it. It's a wonderful use of language and leading me off the reader's expectations and all that. I think I also just answered a question from Andrew by saying that. Andrew wanted a lot of you are named Andrew. He saw that I was from Maine and wanted to know what my favorite Stephen King book was. And now you know, so that's my question crossed off the list. Also, if you're a straight zombie fan watching this, there's Remains of the Dead by Ian McKinnon is great. Mira Grant's Newsflesh series is fantastic. Craig DeLuey wrote The Infection, and his second book, The Killing Floor, is coming out in 2 months from now. Jonathan Mabry does some great stuff. Yeah, there's all that. Oh, Kim Papineroff, too. Also great stuff. Favorite movies is tough. There's so many for so many reasons. The Prestige is great. I love that. The first Pirates of the Caribbean movie is really good. Hellboy is really good. Actually, 2 classics. Casablanca and the original The Day the Earth Stood Still. Yeah, they're black and white, but there's a reason people are still talking about these movies 60 years after they made them. Comics are a little tougher. I've really become disappointed with the big 2 in the past couple of years. I used to be a diehard Marvel zombie as a kid. Read a lot of DC as I got a little older into high school. And it just seems like, I don't know, there's only so many times you can see your favorite childhood heroes torn up and tarnished and torn down in the names of mature storytelling. Yeah, I think the lowest point was when Spider-Man sold his soul to the devil. So I haven't actually picked up many comics since that in the past couple of years. Although I did pick up, I absolutely loved Super Dinosaur by Robert Kirkman and Jason Howard, I think was the artist on it. So yeah, that was a great book. It was really fun. It was simplistic. You could give it to a kid and think that it was talking down to them. And it's got a dinosaur in a battlesuit loaded with missiles. So. Thomas wanted to know, when writing a series/book, how detailed do you get with your outline? Do you have a list of all the pre-Armageddon heroes and those left post-Armageddon lying around somewhere? I'm not really a big outliner, Thomas. I jot down ideas, I write dialogue snippets that come to me, stuff like that. I keep them in a loose order. But I find when it comes to a concrete outline, it becomes kind of limiting. And the few times I've tried to do it, I miss out on all that stuff because I'm so intent on sticking to the outline. There's a lot of great stuff in Ex-Heroes and Ex-Patriots that only happened because I, personally, the way I do it, I had that freedom
to go off and find out other things about the characters, and like that sounds really pretentious, doesn't it? But the story got to grow a lot more organically and naturally, which I think is part of the appeal of it. So that's just that. I did, in all fairness, for Ex-Patriots, have a lot more notes, and I made a timeline, just because I had 2 overlapping books, and I wanted them. I wanted to make sure they weren't contradicting each other as far as when things happened and what happened to who, which is a fancy way of saying I didn't want to be seeing constant things in Amazon about how I screwed up. As far as the list of heroes goes, really there isn't a list. These are just characters I'd made up when I was a kid. You know, writing little cartoons in Mr. Baronson's 5th grade class when I was supposed to be, I don't know what I was supposed to be doing. I was drawing comics. So let that be a lesson to you all. Don't be like me. Pay attention in class. Anyway, as far as post-Armageddon, post-apocalypse, really, I'm only concerned right now with the 6 who we meet at the beginning of Ex-Heroes. I mention other heroes. There could be more scattered all over the place. But really, you know, if somebody survived if one of the heroes I mentioned in England, the Green Knight or the Scarecrow, is still alive, it's really not going to have any effect on our guys in Los Angeles. And I think keeping it a little more localized like that makes it a more fun and more interesting story. Speaking of which, tie-in question, Matt wanted to know what happened to the Awesome Ape. Matt, the Awesome Ape is actually the childhood creation of another writer, a friend of mine, Doug Voyevich. Doug writes the Mac Bolan Executioner series, or some of them. He writes Edge of Hell, Grave Mercy. He also does the Stony Man series. Splintered Sky is one of his. And anyway, Doug and I were talking once about childhood heroes, and he mentioned the Awesome Ape, which I just thought was such a great classic comic book alliterative character. And when I started writing Ex-Heroes, I remembered the Awesome Ape, and I wanted to use him as sort of a background character. So I got in touch with Doug and asked, hey, would you mind if I just mentioned the Awesome Ape in this? And he was okay with it, but by the same token, it was someone else's childhood creation, so I didn't feel right about killing the ape off or, you know, marking him as infected or something like that. So I just deliberately left that kind of vague. I actually was just talking to Doug, and I think he might be toying with the idea of writing a little short story set in the X universe about the Awesome Ape. So, moving on. Andrew, another Andrew, again. Andrew wants to know, how do you divide your time writing multiple projects? What was your order of writing from Ex-Heroes, Ex-Patriots, 14, and Excommunication? Was there any layover between 14 and Excommunication, or possibly even Ex-Patriots? Or did you concentrate and finalize on one book and then move on to another? Andrew, I pretty much do one book at a time. I found that works best for me. Like I was just saying, I might jot down, you know, note snippets that occur to me for another project, but for the most part, I like to focus on this, and I found that works really well for me. The one area where I get a little bit of overlap is what will happen is I'll finish something up, like say I finish 14 and I send that into Permuted, take a couple days off to clear my head, and then dive into Excommunication. And then after about 6 weeks or so, somewhere in there, I will start getting drafts back from the editor. In this case, it was Felicia Tiller-Sullivan, who was great on 14. And she and I will start trading, you know, notes, comments, drafts back and forth. So I have to take some time off to go back to that. But other than that little overlap, generally I start a project and stick with it. As far as the timeline goes, I wrote Ex-Heroes the summer of 2008. Jacob here at Permuted Press accepted it 2 days before Christmas of 2008, but because of one thing or another, it didn't come out until February of 2010. Early 2009, I started writing a little sci-fi horror thing, which then got put aside for the eerie adventures of the lycanthrope Robinson Crusoe, which I finished in September of 2009. Then I started work on Excommunication around February of 2010. That's The Terrible Curse of Roberto Orsi. You can look that up online. Wrote Ex-Patriots, then started 14. Wrote Ex-Patriots. Then in February of 2011, I did the JUNKIE QUATRAIN over about 6 weeks for Audible.com. And then I dove into 14, finished that up, and now I'm on Excommunication, which I'm hoping to have done so you can all, in the next couple months, so you can all see that by Christmas. Okay, this leads nicely into the next question from Dave, who most of you probably know as David Dunwoody, author of Empire and Empire's End.
Dave wants to know how exactly is it that it came to me to combine Robinson Crusoe and Lovecraft and lycanthropy in one book. Okay, as I just mentioned, I finished Ex-Heroes, I was working on something else, and at about this time, Seth Grahame-Smith put out Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which became this huge runaway hit, and about 1,000 people jumped on that bandwagon. One night around this time was like early 2009, I think it would have been. A bunch of folks were in the Permitted Press chat room, and we all ended up talking about other classics that would benefit from having zombies or just any monsters dropped into them. I had actually just read Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe the year before, and I mentioned that, and people started tossing out ideas. And I think it was Jacob Kier who said, you know, well, what if Robinson Crusoe was a werewolf? And a bunch of people thought, oh yeah, that'd be cool, that'd be awesome, but then we immediately realized that the problem there is that Robinson Crusoe is alone on the island, so for about half, 2/3 of the book. So we've got a story about a guy alone who turns into werewolves and kills goats. But then someone else, I can't remember who it was, suggested, well, what if it was a zombie island that he crashed on? And then, oh, that was really cool. Oh, what if all the zombie plague came from a ship, and that's why there was the shipwreck in the first place? Which sounded really cool at first, and Jacob pulled me aside and said, well, could you play around with this and see if you could do something with that? And one of the first things that became apparent to me is that it wouldn't work at all. If Crusoe crashes on an island with zombies, he just has to run. He doesn't have time to build a big camp with a fence around it and dig a cave in the side of a cliff and all that stuff that he does in the book. He just has to run, and that's not even addressing the fact that, you know, 2-3 nights out of the month, you know, when full moons are around, he's going to wake up naked the next morning in the middle of the jungle, probably surrounded by zombies eating him. So yeah, it just became clear that if we tried to go that route, it would be a massive rewriting, pretty much doing the whole book again from scratch, instead of using the book as it exists as a framework for it. What did strike me, though, later was that, or about the same time as I was going through all this, Daniel Defoe's book is already a very Lovecraftian story. If you think about it, it's this lone narrator who believes he's cursed in a very isolated location. It's this primordial setting. It's all these, as they're described, very subhuman natives, you know, out to kill him. And it struck me that this would be very interesting now if this was a more Lovecraftian island that he was shipwrecked on. So it's literally Crusoe against the island. And so I went to Jacob with a bunch of notes and some ideas and said, you know, I don't think I could do the Crusoe and werewolf and zombie idea, but I think the Crusoe and werewolf and Lovecraft idea would work really well. And he looked at my notes and he said, okay, go for it. And that's it. And that was it. Joseph asks, which zombies do you prefer? The X-Books / Night of Living Dead type ones, slow ones, the 28 Days Later fast ones, or even the X-Books super-powered ones?
The eternal question, fast or slow zombies. I personally prefer to write about slow zombies overall, like George Romero, Simon Pegg, a bunch of other people. I just feel it's a little unrealistic, silly as it sounds, that being dead gives you more abilities or makes you better at things like running, jumping, climbing trees, all that. I could also probably get really nitpicky and point out that a lot of the things that are fast zombie stories are actually about living infected people, you know, driven nuts by virus or something, but that's not a whole discussion. I will say that I have seen, you know, despite my own preferences, I've seen a lot of slow zombie stuff that is just god awful. And I have seen some fast zombie stuff that was done really, really well, and I liked it. So I think it all comes down to your personal preference and, you know, what the given storyteller can do. As far as superpowered zombies go, I think that's a little bit of a slippery slope. It's something that writers, especially myself, have to be careful about. If you think about most superheroes, their powers sort of fall into conscious and unconscious powers. Conscious powers are things like, you know, Superman's heat vision and flight, Nightcrawler teleporting, invisible wounds, invisibility. These are things that it takes a trigger. They're not on all the time. The unconscious powers are things like Spider-Man's agility, you know, Hulk's strength, Superman's invulnerability. Superman doesn't have to go, oh my god, they're shooting at me, I have to be invulnerable now. It's just on all the time. And it makes more sense to me that those are the kind of powers that would be active, that a superpowered zombie would have, rather than, you know, zombies that are staggering around. They can't think and are eating meat, but they can still focus their will enough to teleport or shoot heat rays or something. That just doesn't work for me. Again, though, that's just my thoughts, and it would not surprise me. Someone could probably do a story and prove me wrong. So. Next up, another email from Jamal. Jamal asks, with all the hype surrounding zombies in pop culture and the much-discussed CDC ad campaign, which I'm sure most of you have seen, what are the odds there is a true contingency plan in place for the U.S.? I am going to go out on a limb, risk angering a couple people, and say the chances of the U.S. government actually having a real zombie invasion plan are somewhere in the range of 0 to 0. I think the CDC was just taking advantage of the fact of, you know, if you're prepared for a zombie uprising, you're also prepared for a flu outbreak or you know, I don't know, Ebola attack or something like that. So they just realized it was a way they could tap into pop culture and get people to do something they should be doing anyways, just being prepared for if the worst happens.
A few last quick ones. Karen was curious if Captain Freedom's name was supplied by my publisher as a movie tie-in or part of a marketing plan. Minor spoiler for those of you who haven't made it 100 pages into Ex-Patriots yet. Turn your volume down or skip ahead on YouTube until my hand comes down. Captain Freedom's full name, John Carter Freedom. He is in fact named after the Inglourious Basterds character that's even mentioned in the book. I think that's giving Disney a lot of credit considering how their marketing plan went. I think we can all safely say they had no marketing plan at this point. But no, Karen, no marketing plan at all. I'm also a big Burroughs fan, have been since I was a little kid. And I actually came up with his name, or the idea of his name, and the whole story behind it, I believe in like late 2009, before I'd even started really working on the first draft of Ex-Patriots. So there's that. And thank you for thinking Disney would have even the slightest interest in it. Andrew, again, another Andrew, asks, have you given your audiobooks on audible.com a listen? And if so, would you recommend them, even to someone that's already read the books, hasn't read them, or both? I've listened to Ex-Heroes. I have not had a chance to listen to Ex-Patriots. I thought the sample I heard from Ex-Patriots was fantastic, though. Ex-Heroes was fantastic. Really, all the credit on that goes to Jay Snyder, who was the main narrator and all the male voices in it. He was just fantastic. Also, I mean, not to cut off Christine Van, I think that's how you pronounce her name, who did the female voices, was also great. I know it turns some people off to have multiple voices going back and forth in the audiobooks. I thought they did it great, and it was much more like an audio play. So, yeah, if you are into that sort of thing, if you like audiobooks, or you just want to try something a little different, give it a try. Support their work and mine. So, very last question is from Brandon, who wants to know how someone goes about getting an autographed book from me. Brandon, I'm going to be in Crypticon up in Seattle over Memorial Day weekend. Probably when 14 comes out in the summer, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff in Southern California. Hopefully some signings at some different stores down here. Probably showing up at San Diego Comic-Con, very informally. The other two options you've got, one, you can always mail me a book and with return postage, and I will gladly sign it with anything you like. You can shoot me an email at peterclines101@yahoo.com, and we can discuss details on that. The other option is if you wait until after a big convention like Crypticon up in Seattle, I generally have some leftover books, and I sell those off the Facebook fan site. I usually make a deal with people if you're willing to wait. So there's that. I think that's it. Thank you all for listening. 14 comes out in a couple months. Please check it out. I'm kind of proud of it. Tell your friends about the X-Books, rate reviews on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all that sort of stuff. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you very much for your patience.